good afternoon. This is Celia Lacayo with LA Social Science, Associate Director of Community Engagement, and I teach in the African American Studies and Chicano Central American Studies Department. Today we are joined by Jose Loya, and he's going to tell us about his article. This is part of the Contemporary Rising Scholars series, and he is currently an assistant professor here at UCLA in urban planning and a faculty associate at the CSRC. Hello, Jose. How are you today?
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, Celia.
So, can you in general first tell us about your current and future research?
Yeah, so more broadly, my research focuses on social stratification with a focus on racial discrimination in housing, with emphasis on Latino communities as well as Latino borrowers.
So, turning to your article entitled Racial Stratification Among Latinos in the Mortgage Market, published in the Race and Social Problems Journal, tell us about the main argument that you're making there.
Yeah, so in this article, I show that there's racial inequality among Latinos in the mortgage market. More specifically, that Black Latinos are much more disadvantaged than white and Asian Latinos. Other Latinos tend to be in the middle. And so, in addition, what separates this paper from previous analyses or previous work is that most literature in housing focuses on racializing Latinos. So they typically compare Latinos as a whole or as a homogeneous group to whites, Blacks, and Asians. And so this paper looks to kind of disaggregate the racial experiences amongst Latinos.
Wonderful. This is so important to today and so impactful for the Latinx community. Can you tell us about the methods you employed for the research project?
Yeah, so I'm primarily a quantitative scholar. And in this paper in particular, I use a multi-level multinomial hierarchical linear model, also known as an HLM model, that kind of examines mortgage outcomes at the individual level while taking into account multi-level effects. So thinking about neighborhood effects, county effects that might introduce some variation or noise to some of the individual observations that we're seeing.
You actually find some really interesting things here. Tell us more about some of these nuanced findings.
Yeah, so when we think about the theoretical contribution of this work, my work supports the triracial or shows elements of the triracial hierarchy in the mortgage market. So my work kind of supports previous theories that show that whites typically are the most advantaged in the mortgage market. And so they tend to create the highest strata. So their positionality in terms of a racial hierarchy is at the top. And in addition, that Blacks, regardless of Latino identity, they tend to form the bottom strata. And so this kind of provides this element of like where Latinos fit within the racial hierarchy. And when we examine the middle hierarchy, also known as like the honorary white strata in the triracial hierarchy, my work shows that white Latinos and Asian and other Latinos tend to perform somewhere in the middle. But more importantly, I think that something that's kind of nuanced to this work is that my work shows that there's a penalty for just being Latino, regardless of racial identity. And so it's not just about being racialized or being part of a racial group, but it's also that there's an ethnic differentiation in the mortgage market.
So given that this research has so much practicalness to it, how do you see the research impacting Latinx community, informing them about the mortgage market?
So when we think about the Latino community or the Latinx community, we often get homogenized. And so this work kind of bridges what the normal or the regular Latino or Latinx individual faces, right? That they are often racialized and that their racial experience actually varies. And so Afro Latinos have a different experience than white Latinos. And so this paper kind of bridges that gap, but in housing. And so that's kind of where the importance of understanding that these different experiences are really important for Latinos gets translated into this type of work.
Thank you so much for your time. We can see that Professor Loya here is making great research that is critical for not only the Latinx community, but our better understanding of equality and diversity for our larger society. Thank you so much again for your time. Please don't forget to subscribe to LA Social Science. Keep coming back for the best research. And I will catch you later. This is Celia. Have a great one. Bye-bye.